Okay. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Please drop a message in the chat if you can see my screen. Anybody? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. All right. So, this slide, as usual, is on Google Classroom. I'll be uploading session 2, which is our slides for tomorrow. I'll upload it after this class, and assignments for the new week will be uploaded by tomorrow. However, like I said, grading for week 5 will be, you will all get your grade in worst case scenario by Tuesday, but we've started, right? So some of you have started to get your grades already. Now, today we'll be talking about UX design, right? This is a very interesting topic because ordinarily UX design is for product managers, right? Uh, okay, guys, please let me attend to. Let me respond to this person that is unable to join. Or can someone share the link to this class with her? Can someone please assist this, what's her name? Kels. Please someone please assist Kels to on how to join the class. Let me carry on. Okay. So now we are going to be talking about UX design. And I was saying that this is very interesting because traditionally, right, ordinarily um product managers do not create design screens for the product. However, you have a role to play, and it's that role that you have to play that we are going to be discussing in this class. Now, what is UI UX design? A couple of us must have heard UI UX design, especially those of us who are familiar with the tech scene, right? Now, UI UX are there are two different terms that are mashed up in the UI UX design title. Now UI means user interaction, while UX means user experience. Now user interaction and user experience make up UI UX, and it is a discipline of product development that entails the process of researching and designing the user interaction on the product, right? So the user experience segment is the process of researching the how to create or how to develop the user interaction on the product, while the user interaction is involves the designing of the interface that the user will interact with. So it's two different disciplines, but it's merged in one, sort of, especially in the way Nigerian tech ecosystems. Now we understand the more we progress, so don't worry if you're confused right now. Now, like I said, user interface or UI covers the visual elements of the design process. So this is the one that a designer, a product designer will handle. And they do things like designing the buttons, the icons, the typography, and other visual elements that make up the screens, right? And which form the user experience. While UX refers to the entire interaction a user will have with the product. A good UI UX design results in a product experience that delights users because it ensures that your product properly caters to the target users. For example, if an app has pretty screens, which is good UI, user interaction, right? But the colors used on the buttons and the text are conflicting, or maybe the text is so faint on the buttons that users don't even know what to do. What this CTA button, CTA means call to action. This call to action button, what is it asking me of? If the text on it, for example, is not clear, that means bad UX copy. UX is user experience, which means the product will not be able to deliver proper value to the users which can result in failure of the product, right? You can just find that a button that maybe is very important or very crucial to your onboarding flow, users are not taking action because it's not clear what you want them to do. Your UX copy is not clear, or yes, your UX copy is not clear, or the text, which is also UX copy, the text on the button is not very clear to the user as to this is the action you need me to take. They can drop off out of frustration. They'll just abandon your product. So good UI goes hand in hand with good UX, which is why they are under one umbrella, UI UX design. Now, a well-designed user journey is one in which users are able to intuitively understand and experience the benefits of your product without experiencing any difficulty. So that's like a baseline characteristics of a well-designed user journey in which users are able to just understand your product and they're able to experience the benefits of your product without experiencing any difficulty. Just imagine a good product that you're able to onboard without reaching out to customer service, without having to Google how do I create this account. It's just very seamless. The UI being your visual experience, the UX being maybe things like the copy on screen. It's just seamless, and you're able to just fluidly or intuitively onboard successful onto the product. That is a product that has a good UI, good UX design. Now, big tech companies, the UI UX discipline is split into product designers, right? Which are the people who cover the user interaction. That's, like I said, people who design the visual elements such as the screen, the icon, things that just the visual and the beautiful elements of your product. The product designers are those who cater to it, while user researchers are those who cover the user experience function. So as big tech companies, maybe as a company like Google or Meta, there will be a user researcher, and there'll be a product designer that is working with the product manager during the UI UX design process of a product development phase, right? Now, however, it's actually in Nigeria specifically, or even in Africa, I don't see a lot of they exist, but they are not as common as they are in the Western world. So I don't see a lot of user research roles. They do exist, like I said, but not 1 out of 5 tech startups will have a user researcher, right? So most of the time what happens is that the product manager now find themselves conducting user research functions in collaboration with a product designer. So product manager will now handle the user research part of the UX part of the UI UX, and then the product designer will handle the UI. And often, if you have a product marketer, they can support with product copy, but it's primarily a product manager who now sort of takes care of that lapse or that gap that is existing in our infrastructure, in at least in this part of the ecosystem in Africa. Now, as startups, product managers work in collaboration with product designers to ensure that requirements are accurately translated from the PRD to design screens. Now, this is where you now see why some of you when you wrote your PRD, I left comments for some of you. Maybe you had comments such as you didn't write a use case scenario for your futures. You're going to find out why that is important, because tomorrow we're going to be talking about wireframing and drawing user flowcharts, right? But even in the beginning stage of a design stage, the product designer is able to translate what you, the product manager, has documented on the PRD that will be the use flow or the use case scenarios for certain actions or certain parts of your futures, right? And so you work in collaboration with the product designer to translate whatever you've documented in the PRD, and then to ensure that the finished product aligns with your user's needs, because it was you who conducted research, so you know the user needs very clearly. Now, ideally, when a product designer has completed designing screens for the product, the product manager will review again, because you define the requirements. So you will review and see whether this aligns with what you've defined, or if this thing works with our user. When you're reviewing the screens, you're also thinking of things like user experience, as not just functionality. Not just, you're not even just looking at the user flow, you're also thinking of user experience. Maybe the product designer may have used there's no UX researcher on your team, so nobody gave them UX copy. And you read the copy while you are reviewing the screen, and you just realize that, no, this copy can never work for my users, or this copy doesn't align with our brand, with what you know of the company brand, or what you know of the users. Let's say you are talking to millennials and you're using Gen Z language, right? It is you now who, while reviewing, will not be able to flag that sort of oversight and say this cannot work for the kind of product and for the kind of users that we are targeting. So, what is the importance of a good UX design? And one importance is that it reduces the chances of product failure. A bad UX can lead to the inevitable failure of a product. Like I said earlier, if a user is unable to navigate or understand how to unlock or how to um, acquire the benefits of your product, then the chances that you will retain them is very slim, because they will drop off. You'll be experiencing very high churn rates on your products, right? Which can lead to the failure of your product. So a good UI UX design is very important. It's not just, oh, screens are beautiful, color is lovely. That's not fundamentally what the purpose of a good UI UX design. Yes, you need beautiful screens and you need aesthetics, right? Because you want to be able to delight your customers and capture a certain segment, and maybe your aesthetic screens will be your product differentiator. However, there is a functional, or there's a fundamental reason to why you need to ensure that your product has a really good UX design, or your user has a really good user experience on your product in terms of the design. Now, a good UX design also removes friction. The ability to clearly translate ideas conceptualized on the PRD, so essentially being able to translate the ideas or the user flows that you've drafted on your PRD, right? Is very dependent on a good UX design. If you don't have a good rapport, or if you're unable to collaborate properly with your product designer, the chances that they will be able to clearly translate what you have documented is slim. And if they're unable to translate it, it means they're unable to even capture the all of the data that informed writing your PRD. Because remember, you did user research, so you did not just write your PRD from thin air. Now imagine if they're unable to properly translate the things that you've documented on your PRD, that is a direct output of your market or your user research. It means that your products will not be able to translate the kind of value that you need your users to get. Or it means that the final screens will not be a direct output of your research. Now, a good UX design also covers all the customer touch points. Now, what is touch points? What are customer touch points? Customer touchpoints are key points on your product which customers will experience in the course of interacting with your product as they move along the customer journey. Now, what is the customer journey? And I'll tie all of this together. Customer journey is a series of steps that a customer will take to interact with your products before they become converted customers. And there are 5 stages of the customer journey. Now, even though the customer journey is more of a marketing concept, right? If your UX design is good, it will cover all the touch points that are relevant to the customer journey, which your product should encapsulate, right? Because the customer journey is important, because it just sort of shows you how your products, how your customers are interacting with your product from when they first discover you to when they convert and you retain them to loyal customers. So it means that your UX design should also be able to factor in what are the touch points that our customers will experience. For example, you want to design your onboarding process in such a way that it is not too long, so that your users are not dropping off, because they'll just be like, I beg, is it heaven we are going to? How many steps are we going to take before we get into the app? Those are things that a good UX will factor in when they are designing. You don't want your onboarding. That's why you see when you sign up to some fintech apps, you find that you only do small KYC. KYC is know your customer. So when you're uploading your documents, they're asking you for BVN, they're asking you for this. These days, most fintechs might just ask you for your BVN. So you can get on the product quickly, and then they'll ask you for things like your utility bill or your email or your passport. They'll ask you once you've onboarded onto the product. Why do they do that? Because they are trying to ensure that they are not dropping or they are not losing customers at the onboarding stage, because that is a critical stage. And so it also means that the UX will also be very will also factor in the fact that since this is a critical stage, this is a conversion stage for our user, this is the activation stage, this is the awareness stage in our customer journey, and the UX will cater to that. So they will be very intentional in how they design the buttons, how the kind of languaging that is used, even how many screens should we have during onboarding. You don't want to put 10 screens that people will be onboarding to your product since morning, right? You want it to be very quick, very short, because you factor in the fact that, okay, my users are maybe very young people, they have short attention span, so we need to get them quickly onto the product, and then we'll follow up, and then they can upload all the other documentation. That is what a good UX design can deliver to users. One last importance of a good UX design is that it makes tracking product analytics easier. Now, product analytics is simply the tracking of metrics or data that is relevant to the success of a product. Right now, this is directly connected to the previous point I just mentioned, which is customer touch points. And that's because when you are tracking user behavior, you attach your analytics to touch points, right? So now, how do you know that your users are dropping off during onboarding? It's because you've attached an analytic tool. We've learned about product metric, right? It's because you attached an analytic tool. There are several analytic tools that you can incorporate into the back end of your products. Not you, your engineer or your developer will incorporate into the back end of your product. So you are able to observe the user behavior or the user journey of your users. Now, this is why it's important to understand what their user journey is and what are the touch points are. Because when you now know, you're not able to notice things like, oh, we have a lot of customers that are downloading the app, but we don't have the same number signing onto the app. What that means is that people are downloading your products and they are forgetting about it. They are not creating accounts. You have to understand, why are they not doing it? How is there a way we can reach out to these users to follow up? Is it because there's no way you're able to understand user behavior if you're not able to monitor analytics. And so even things inside the app where you're able to understand that we have users dropping off, we have users that are onboarding, but they are not getting to log in. So they've onboarded once, but they never log in after they've created their first account. It is when you look at your analytics that you're not able to understand why. But if your UX is not clear, right, you're not even going to be able to even derive proper analytics, which means you will not even be able to problem solve for things like your product failing, and to just be failing under your nose, you will not realize it. So these are the importance of a good UX design. It's very critical to the success of your product. It's not just, like I said, it's not just aesthetics, it's not just beautiful screens. There's a purpose. Yes, aesthetic is good, which is the user interaction part of it. And even the user interaction, the product designers are trained to understand certain aspects of good UI design that you will not know. So the reason why we are covering UX design only, or well, primarily focusing on UX design, is because, like I said, as the product manager, you are likely to function as a maybe some sort of user researcher, or you most likely be the one dictating the UX aspects of the design process, right? So your product designer will be able to ensure that they are giving you excellent UI design that is in line, aligns with your brand, your product brand, or that is really good. They will ensure good practice, good design practice. But in terms of the UX, it might fall on your table as a product manager, because, as I said, a lot of startups in this part of the world have not gotten to the stage where they are able to let people specialize, or they're able to afford to hire specialists in certain roles. And so what will happen is you'll find that you are taking in a couple of cross-functional responsibilities that are directly tied to the success of your product. Now, what are UI design tools? We're learning about UI design tool. I know I just said that it's a product designer who will primarily be in charge of UI design. However, as a product manager, you need to know what are the tools that you're going to be collaborating with, right? Because it's not even just product designer that will get on these tools. Even your developer, your back end, your front end, they are going to look at these tools as well. So as a product manager, you should just know them. Now, Figma is the most popular, and Figma is a browser-based interface tool. They also have a mobile application, but for work, the mobile application is not, I've never used it, but I know there's a mobile application, right? So maybe for if we have assignments such as this, maybe a mobile application will work. But in terms of you are working in corporate for with product teams, the browser is usually more effective, and it is a collaborative design workspace where the product designer can design, and other teams that have been added to that particular workspace are able to see whatever it is that your product designer has designed, and you're able to drop comments and leave feedback and all of that. Like I said, this is usually the most popular tool for product teams. It has a free plan for individuals and a paid plan option. There's also Sketch. Now, Sketch is just sort of like Figma. It's a collaborative design tool as well. However, it's limiting because it is an Apple product, so it's just compatible with Mac OS. It also has a free trial and a paid plan. Another very popular one is Adobe XD. I think Adobe XD is more popular with graphic designers who are brand designers, not necessarily products, but I know that some product designers do use it. It's part of the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite tools, and it is compatible with both Mac and Windows OS. And it has a free trial and a paid plan. And then FigJam. So these are not all, though. There are other design tools. It is inexhaustive. We just cover we cover the most popular ones that you're likely to interact with, and you can go and do your own research. Now, FigJam is also is under the Figma parent company, right? It's a Figma tool, but it's more of a collaborative tool, right? It's a tool that remote teams use to brainstorm. They have a virtual whiteboard, and you can also, why it is here is because you can use it to map flowcharts, and that is most likely what we'll be using to map our flowcharts. You can also use it to map your customer journey. Now, user research and future-driven development. What is user research? User research is also known as user experience research, and it is aimed at knowing what users want and need and how consumers interact with your product or service. Right now, in I think it was week 1 or week 2, we learned about user research. Now, user research is different from user experience research but it's not necessarily different. It's like taking it a step further. So you're not just now in user experience research, you're not just now trying to understand your users. You're trying to understand how they are interacting with your product. So it's just one step further. You're trying to understand what their experience on your product has been so far. So it is no longer you trying to gather research from potential. User research can either be from potential customers if you're trying to launch your MVP, or from existing users if you already have an existing product. But in user experience research, you're thinking of more, you're asking questions that are more aligned with the product experience, right? How do they feel about your product? What is their experience on your product? Are they having issues on your product? Are they having issues discovering something? Those are the kind of things that a user experience research is trying to uncover. And they're just methods that are used to get information about customers' expectations regarding their experience on your product. So it's a very specific type of research. Now, future-driven development, on the other hand, is a framework for software development, right? And it focuses on advancing the capabilities of specific features of a product. It can be as simple as creating a more efficient login process for a product, and it involves 5 steps, which are develop an overall model, build a feature list, plan by feature, design by feature, and build by feature. So it's very future specific, which is why it is feature driven development. It's also known as FDD. Now, you will notice that user research and FDD are two completely different aspects of product development. However, user research and FDD, they are kind of used together, right? They serve as a feedback for product design, and their FDD is quite similar to Scrum methodology, but it's a bit different. It takes on a more systemic approach to the development process than Scrum. Now, what's the difference? We've said that they actually can be used collaboratively, right, in user research. Now, the key differences between UX research and FDD have been categorized into three categories: goals, emphasis, and application. That means they differ in terms of what the goal you're trying to achieve is, what is the emphasis, and what is the application. Now, in terms of goal, the goal of user research is gathering information, while the goal of feature-driven development is providing the framework for building the product. So, like I said, it's more of a framework, more of like a methodology like Scrum, but it is not Scrum. Now, it's the emphasis of user research is they're trying to, in user research or when conducting user experience research, please let's not conflate this with the user research we learned in week 2. In user experience research, it involves evaluating the who, that's the users, and why, which is what is the need that these users have for your product. That is what user experience research is trying to uncover, while FDD is trying to evaluate what is the future and how are we developing the future. So you see that they are both very distinct. Now, in terms of application, user experience research happens very early on in the process, and it informs the design process. In fact, it goes hand in hand with the design process, right? So whilst the product designer might be trying to even conceptualize the entire process, the user researcher would have probably done a bit of research or would do research in collaboration or simultaneously as the product designer is working, while FDD is used throughout the development life cycle. So you can see that there are three very distinct application of three very different differences between UX research and feature-driven development. Now, there are also similarities, right? Research provides evidence that can be used to make informed decision. So that means that user experience research is valuable input for feature-driven development. And so by understanding your user needs, developers using FDD can prioritize features and ensure they are building something users will actually find useful. So it can be used in tangent, in collaboration. The reason why we're learning about the differences is just for the sake of knowledge, but usually FDD as a framework can be used as a UX researcher is conducting user experience research, because it's sort of a mindset framework, sort of. Now, what are the user research methods that product managers will use while you're conducting user experience research? There are several methods that you can use for conducting user experience research. However, they can be divided into two approaches, right? There's a quantitative or qualitative approach, and we learned about quantitative and qualitative approach in week 2. So if you've forgotten, you can refer back to week 2 slide to understand how to conduct quantitative or qualitative research. Whilst for the purpose of this particular topic, we're going to focus on number 2 because we've already covered number 1 in previous courses or in previous sessions. Now, it's either you conduct quantitative or qualitative approach in terms of user experience research, or you use attitudinal or behavioral approach. Now, attitudinal methods gather data on what the subjects say, what they feel, and what they think about the product, whereas behavioral methods record what the subjects do and how they interact with the product. Let's dive into each of these: attitudinal, or behavioral approach. Let's address each of these approaches. Now, the behavioral approach has a qualitative approach, and remember that we said qualitative approach is more when you're conducting user interviews, right? That's what a qualitative approach is. And so it usually has a qualitative approach and includes using tools such as website analytics. So this is what you're trying to, if your product is maybe an e-commerce product and you're trying to track um, certain analytics on your web page or on your website, right? Like an e-commerce product, which is exactly what an e-commerce will track. You can use website analytics to monitor your users' behavior. A/B testing, we're going to learn about A/B testing in week 8. It's a type of user research method, but it is the analysis of design variation that users. So think of A/B testing as, let me give an instance. Let's say you are working, your designer has designed something. It's a screen for, you're trying to think of, okay, let's say you're trying to refine or optimize your payments app, your payments, the payments aspect. Let's say you're working on your product is a paid product, e-commerce. Let's use an e-commerce product, right? And you're trying to optimize the payment page on your e-commerce website, and your UI designer has, your product designer has designed something, and you're like, I don't think this will work, right? And then he designs another one, and you take it to the team. You take these two screens to the team, and you're saying, you guys should choose, and you find that half of the team chooses one screen and half of the team chooses another screen, right? And you're torn. How do we now know which of the screen is the right screen that will be perfect for our users? Right. A way to test this type of thing is by conducting A/B testing. In A/B testing, you will now segment your users into different variants, which is into variants being the category of each of these screens, right? So let's say you have 100 users, you can keep, let's say, 50 as your control. So 50 will see the current payment screen that is still there. 25 will now see one of the new screens that your product designer has designed, while the remaining 25 will see the other screens that your product designer has designed. And the purpose of A/B testing is just to gauge is to get real-time user feedback. Now, you cannot carry the screens and go and be asking your users one after the other and say, people should come and vote. So which one do you prefer, right? So A/B testing is just perfect because you are able to observe through the analytics. You're able to observe which of these screens are more effective. And that already just gives you direct real-time feedback into which of it you want to go. And with A/B testing, there's nothing like bias because it is data. So if you find out that all the 25 users, or if you find out that the performance rate increased for the segment that has a particular type of screen, even if it's not the screen that you liked, you have to go with it because that's what the users are rolling with, right? So you are there to, with A/B testing, you're able to observe the data and you're able to see you're able to analyze design variations and optimize for which variation your users are interacting with more. Usability testing is another type of user experience research, and we'll also learn about this consequently, not today, but during the course of this program. And usability testing is essentially just to observe how users are completing tasks, and it identifies how usability issues in their behavior crop up. Just as the name implies, usability. So you're just trying to observe how your users are completing tasks on your product. Are they completing tasks in the expected time frame, or are they having issues? It's just to optimize, just to observe that, and then you optimize your UX, which is why it's user experience. You optimize the experience for your users. And then there's also eye tracking, which measures where users look on a screen to understand their visual attention. And with eye tracking, it helps because you are able to now put very important information that are crucial to the product in places where you think that the users will automatically look at. Product design can also help with eye tracking in the sense that they can use visual elements such as colors to draw users' attention to a particular part of the screen that you want their attention to go. Think think of things like pricing. If you have a subscription product, right, and you have 4 pricing plan, you find that even when you log on to websites that have pricing plan, you see that they automatically highlight the a certain payment plan. Maybe it's their most preferred or it's their most optimized pricing. Whatever the rationale is, you usually find that you just see that they highlight one, and that is just the one that your eye is drawn to first before you are now able to even start looking at the other options that are beside it. So that is something that good user research experiments will help uncover, and it contributes to optimizing your user experience and user engagement on your product. Now, for attitudinal approach, uses a more quantitative approach. Quantitative is more survey forms, Google Forms. So you're just using these tools to get user feedback as opposed to direct interaction. And examples of attitudinal approaches: user interviews, focus groups, just to collect focus group is you put a couple of users in a particular group and you observe and you collate collective user feedback from them, right? Ethnographic studies is just you grouping your users into a certain segment, right? And trying to understand their behavior in that context and just to understand their thought process. So an ethnographic study might be maybe you're trying to understand your users in the West, right, in Nigeria. And so you just look at your users that reside in the western parts of Nigeria, places like Lagos, for example, and you're trying to observe, okay, what are their lifestyle? Let's say it's a lifestyle app. What are their lifestyle choices? How does this impact our product? So if we use our grocery pay hypothetical product as an example, conducting an ethnographic study will also be if we're trying to, for example, let's say we've launched the products, right, and we have users from all over Nigeria, not just in Lagos, and we're trying to uncover how to personalize product offerings to our users. If you want to now start giving personalized offerings, it means you have to start segmenting your user based on location and trying to understand their context. Conducting an ethnographic user experiment will help you uncover such nuanced context in terms of the user's location and their ethnicity and all of that. And then there's surveys, which we already know what surveys are. Now, building user persona. Ideally, building a user persona will not be a product manager's responsibility. It is marketing, right, or a user researcher. But for the context of this topic, because we are addressing user research, and there are times when, like I said, you might find yourself conducting user research. Even when you're conducting user research, you will likely not be required to build a user persona. But for the course of this topic, we're going to learn about user persona and how to build one, but we will not go in depth. Now, in UX, user persona represents the end users, and it is typically done after user and market research. Can you see why your user research is very, very important? It's every step of the product development process. You are building on the previous step. And so if you don't do step 1 properly, you might struggle with step 2, you might struggle with step 3, and you just keep struggling, and you just see that your product is not making the kind of sense that you want it to make, right? So now, which is why for some of you, when you conducted your user research, I left comments for some of you that you asked leading questions. And that was because you'll find out now as we're building a user persona, because if you're not able to uncover your user frustrations and you're not able to uncover your user pain points, you will struggle to be able to build a proper user persona, right? So it's important to pay attention to every step of the product development process so that you ensure that your foundation is strong, and so that when you are building on top of each building block, you're not wobbling, your product is not wobbling, right? Now, in UX, which is user experience, user persona represents the end user, and it is typically done after the user and market research has been conducted. Now, why is it done after this? And that's because the way a user persona is built, it is you draw insight from what you already know about the user. And we're going to see what I mean very, very shortly. In product management, like I said, it's not mandatory to build a user persona. But if you find yourself functioning as a user researcher, or if you see that your role demands for it, it's important to know how to build one. So this is a nice to note, right? It's not necessarily very important to your role, but it's a nice to know. Now, with user persona, you can focus on features that address the user needs and challenges, right? There are two main elements of a user persona: the heading and the demographic details. In the heading, you have a fictional name which you use to remember the person. If you've conducted user research, you probably already know the user. You definitely know your username already, right? Now, marketing might develop user persona before you even do user research, right? But as a user researcher or as a product manager, you've definitely conducted your research. So you can either use your user's real name or you can use a fictional name. You definitely use a fictional image. There are resources on the internet where you can get stock free images. You don't go and just look for somebody's picture on Facebook and come and put on your user persona. No, you don't do that. That's unethical. You look for stock free resources or stock free images on the website and use for your user persona. And then you add a statement that summarizes your personal preference with your product. You can use user stories, or you can derive a customer statement based off of feedback. Now, I saw some of you did really good user research, and I left comments for people like you, which means that sometimes, because of the kind of questions you asked, your users were able to tell you how to solve their problems, right? Some of them were able to tell you that this is the problem that I'm facing, and I would like if I had a personal shopper. Now, that can be something that you can now use. That can now be your statement in terms of building that specific user persona for such a user. And the demographic details. So remember, I said there are two elements: the heading and demographic details. Under the heading, you add a fictional name because you're trying to make the user persona realistic. You add a fictional image. This one is mandate. It has to be fictional, or you can do without an image, but I like to add an image. And you add a statement that summarizes your persona's preference with your product. And then the second element is the demographic details. Under demographics, you add information, personal background information such as age, gender, ethnicity, education, marital status, etc. Some of you might be wondering, why are we adding marital status to user persona? Now, again, some of this information are very important to how you are able to frame your product offering. Think of a grocery pin, right? And you know that your user is married with kids. Do you know that the kind of, when you are now trying to offer personalized offering to such a user, it will be different from the kind of offering that you give somebody who is single, because you might now say, okay, you even your content, right? You might now maybe on their own app, when you're trying to now start to segment customer experience or trying to personalize their experience on your product, on their app, they might be seeing content that will also help them and their children's nutrition, because you know they are married. That's why you're able to show them that type of content. But when you know that this person is single and the person is young, maybe the person likes to go to the gym, or you have a bit of information that you might think that is irrelevant to collect this type of information, just even knowing that this person goes to the gym, you are able to know that, oh, this is a person that is conscious about their health, so they might like to track their calorie. So when you are now developing things, you might now be telling, when they are ordering on your product, you might include things like calorie counter for meals. So if they are ordering maybe a plate of rice, you're able to tell them that, oh, this plate of rice and chicken is 500 calories. Why? Because you know that you have users that are health conscious or that are fitness conscious. So when you're drafting or when you're developing your user persona, you add personal information that will be relevant to building the product experience. Then you add professional background. This is also important because it will inform your pricing, it will inform your positioning and market positioning and all of that. You involve environment, like where do they stay, what's their technological environment, what's their social environment, important nuances. So all of these are not always important, but remember that you always think of your product and you try to frame whatever you are framing. You pick and choose what is important to the framing in light of what type of product and what industry your product exists in. And then there's things like psychographics, which is attitude, interest, pain points, and motivations of your users. Now let's build a user persona for our Netflix example. I hope you remember our Netflix example in week 2. Now, since our user personas are built on information that we've already gathered from customer interviews, we'll highlight what we know about Netflix users and catalog these informations according to the elements that we've discussed, right? Now, Netflix has a broad range of users. When they first started, their user base or their user segment was very, very simple and limited. But now it's very broad. There's family, there's individual, there's very young tech people, and then there's now anybody that can use a digital device, even if it's our parents' age. So they have a broad segment, which is why they are also now trying to offer personalized products offering them that are existing in several markets. But for the purpose of this class, we are going to just look at one segment of the user, which is young, tech-savvy adult users. So this is very short. This is short, nice, and this clearly tells us that okay, these users that we're trying to address are young people, they're tech savvy, and they're adults. So not only are they just young, they're adults, which means that people below 18 are cut off from this user segment. Now, the information that we've used to build the customer persona is gathered from your user research and your PRD, like I said earlier. Now, this is what a user persona would look like. So this is a fictional name, or this might be the real name of my customer. This is a fictional image I got from Unsplash, which is a website where you can get free stock images. Now, customer statements, like remember I said, it can be your user stories, it could be assumptions, just something that reflects what your customer is looking to gain from your product. And so I said, as a user, I want to be able to readily access movie content from the comfort of my home. Now, this user is 25, she's female, she's a graphic designer, she's single, she lives in Lagos, and she's a graduate. What's her pain points? One of her pain points is that she finds it inconvenient to leave her home and go and rent a movie. And what's the solution? She would like a movie service that would allow her watch movie from the comfort of her home. And so this image now is it's called a user persona, and it just clearly articulates, it encapsulates just in a very in a high level overview what's all the important details that pertains to our user. Now, what are the metrics for measuring user experience? It is not enough to create a fantastic user experience for your users. It is not enough to design delightful screens and visually appealing screens. There are other segments. What are you always have to attach a metric in product management. You always have to attach a metric to your efforts, right? So now, what are the metrics that you would track in in terms of monitoring your user experience or ensuring that you are optimizing or leveraging your user experience? Now, user experience metrics can be grouped into two major aspects. They are the engagement and usability metrics and satisfaction and sentiment metrics. Now, engagement and usability metrics checks the extent to which your users use and engage with your product. And they are categorized into 4. Completion or success metrics, which checks if your users were able to complete tasks effectively without encountering any problem or breach. So you can use a completion metric might be, let's say your KYC process involves a tiered approach, which means you have 3 tiers that your users have to complete for their KYC to be complete on your product, right? You can now check when you look at your analytic board, you are now able to monitor, okay, what is the completion rate for our tier KYC process. There's also duration metrics. And remember, this is under engagement and usability metrics. Duration metrics involve tracking the average time users spend on a screen, how long it took to perform a task. Then you'll be wondering, how are we going to know these things? Apps, applications, mobile applications, which is what I mobile applications, they incorporate back-end tools into the product, the back-end analytic tools into the product, right? Such as Mixpanel, Amplitude. And because of all of these tools, you are now able to monitor, you're able to track events. It's called event tracking. You're able to monitor your users' behavior. So you're not able to see, your privacy is ensured. You're not able to, you can't see what your user is doing specifically, right? You cannot see that, oh, they're sending a message to somebody or whatever. You can't see those things. What you are seeing is how they're interacting with your features, how long they're spending on a particular session. So if you're trying to monitor duration metrics, for example, if they're on a screen that requires them to make a decision, how long are they spending on that screen? And monitoring things like that can now help you say, okay, should we shorten the time should we shorten the number of screens that we need for users to complete this step? Let's say it's an e-commerce app again, and we need users to make payments, and we'll find that users are taking too long on the payment screens, right? Let's say our because you would have tested, and according to your test, it takes 5 minutes for users to complete the payment flow. But you see that they're spending 10 to 15 minutes. Why are they spending 10 to 15 minutes? You tracking this type of events or this type of behaviors will now let you know what to do. Do you talk to the users and ask them why? Or do you run an experiment? Do you do an A/B experiment? Make one session shorter than the other? But just being able to even see the analytics back end will help you understand what the next steps are to take. And so duration metric just reveals how users are able to navigate and interact with your products per session. Like I said, there's also error metrics. Remember, this is under engagement and usability metrics. Error metric is different from a bug or technical error. It measures users' action on a product that did not lead them to their expected solution. So let's say you already know your user flow, right? And you are monitoring their events on your analytics tool. And you notice that, oh, they are not probably not achieving the expected solution, or they're not achieving the expected, they're not getting to the expected end of your flow for them, for this particular stage of your product, right? Error metric will track how many users are encountering this type of error on your product. And then session duration and frequency is almost similar to duration metrics, but it measures how your users stay engaged with your products and how often they return. And this can indicate user satisfaction and overall stickiness. So things like number of logins can be what you use to test to track session and frequency metrics. And then there's satisfaction and sentiment metrics, which is another category entirely. And this type of metrics, tracking metrics under this category, is just when, as a user experience researcher, you are trying, or as a product manager that is, taking on this role, you are trying to reveal the extent to which your customer perceive your products met their needs, and also the areas of features that they desire to be added or removed. Now, the metrics that you will track under this bucket or this category of metrics is customer satisfaction score, which essentially assesses your user happiness with specific aspects of your product experience. System usability scale provides a standardized score on how easy and efficient users find your product to use. Net Promoter Score measures user loyalty and likelihood to recommend your product to others. This can be tested with surveys, right? So you conduct quantitative research. Customer effect score evaluates the ease with which users achieve their goals within your product. Now, communicating with UX stakeholders. Remember, we've learned about stakeholders, we've learned about UI UX, and we know that communication is a very, very, very important soft skill that a product manager should hold. So, in terms of UX, there's this tendency to see UI UX as just pretty screens, like I said. It's very, there's a tendency for stakeholders, especially like business stakeholders and managerial stakeholders, to just see UI UX as pretty screens, just graphic design, and they overlook it or they undervalue it compared to developers. They think maybe it's just the coding that is important. The UX or the UI is not important. And so, how do you work around this type of bias? There are a few tips that you can use, and we're going to learn about them. Now, the first way is to focus on business impact. Don't just talk about pretty buttons. When you're trying to say, oh, the UX has been designed, for example, explain how a smooth UX translates to higher engagement, because remember, you are tracking metrics. So at the end of the day, it's not just pretty screens and pretty buttons. There are, so you can see that from the beginning we've learned that there are so many factors that come into play when even deciding, even in terms of product design, even on the side of a product designer trying to decide on how do I design this screen, where do I put this button, what color do I use. Obviously, there will already be brand colors, but there will be accent colors that a product designer will have to decide on. Okay, which one do we use for this button? Where do we place it? These are things that you take into cognizance with your user experience, right? So it's not just pretty button. It's not that the button is blue. There's a reason why the button is blue. Maybe the button is blue so that it can. Maybe the button is blue because the text is black, and the button is very blue because you want to draw your user's attention straight to the button and you want them to take action. Right? So it's not just pretty buttons. And so when you are conversing or when you are trying to translate UX requirements, or when you are trying to even communicate to stakeholders, communicate UX, or you're trying to make a case for a particular UI UX decision, think about business impact. Explain how a smooth UX translates to higher engagement, how it translates to faster task completion, and ultimately more money or whatever business initiative for that future. Remember that when you are drafting your futures, you already attached a business initiative to it. So it could even be you translating how this UI UX that you are fighting for, maybe this screen that they're just like, it's a waste of time. Why do you want to add more screens to we already have 10 screens. You want us to add 5 screens. Why? We don't have time for it. You are able to make a case by focusing on business impact and how those screens will contribute to the overall user experience and ultimately help us achieve company or business initiative. Then you can also use numbers to defend your claim, right? If you've already implemented something on the app that worked before, and people are short-sighted, they sometimes they're on a time crunch, there's not enough time, stakeholder just wants you to launch very quickly. It could be a number of different reasons why you're trying to bargain for, let us do something, or let us launch a certain screen, and they're saying there's no time for us to even go back, allow UX to come and start working, right? If focusing on the data or focusing on numbers could be that you've implemented such a screen before, maybe on the business, maybe on a different product that the company has, or on a different feature, and you're trying to replicate, and it worked, and it's something you're trying to replicate, right? You can use the numbers, the fact that it worked before, and it means that this is important to our user experience and user engagement. And so you show how things like A/B testing has improved our user engagement, right? So focusing on the numbers can very much defend your claim. And then keep it simple. You don't want to use industry specific terminology for things that, when you're talking to stakeholders, are not necessarily in your discipline. Now, it doesn't mean you start using layman terms, because that's unprofessional, but just try to explain complex concepts in clear, concise language, or tie it to real world experiences, real world examples. That makes it easier. And then you can also use user stories and pain points to tell compelling story. Remember, you already have conducted user research, right? And some of the time, you've also conducted A/B testing, which is a part of user experience research. And so, just even using the user stories drawn from your user research and showing that feedback can help you highlight the frustrations that your users are facing and make a case for whatever it is you are trying to fight for. And then mock-ups and prototype. Now, often at times, even me, in my experience, I've had a situation where a stakeholder did not want us to go with a specific design direction, right? And we were the product team specifically, not even just me, was very adamant that this is the right direction for our products because we had conducted competitive market research, but looked at what was on the market, and this worked. And this worked for our product. So, but our stakeholder was not in agreement with us, right? And after much back and forth, what we did was we had our product designer create a mock-up of what the product. Tomorrow we're going to learn about what mock-up is, but we had our product designer create a mock-up of what the final screens would look like when the developers have coded it, and how this sort of translates to the vision that we are all seeing, because it looked like we had one vision but we had different ideas on how to bring that vision to life, right? And so in doing that, this stakeholder, who was a key stakeholder, high interest, high power stakeholder, was now able to say, okay, you know what, I see what you are doing here, you push finish, let's see, I like what I see, right? And so in using mock-up and prototype, you are able to showcase what's not necessarily the final product, but you're able to showcase what the feel of the final product will be or what it will look like. And they're able to just virtually experience it before developers even write one line of code. And it also prevents time wasting when you create mock-ups this way or prototype a screens this way, because before your developers even write a line of code and before you're even wasting time back and forth, just prototyping has already shown you that, okay, this works or this doesn't work, let's go back to drawing board. You also need to frame it as a collaboration. And this is important when you're collaborating with product designers. You don't want them to just feel like their work is just screens and buttons, and it's not just to draw one screen. Why are you telling me that your work will take 5 days? No, you don't want to do that type of thing. You need to position your ask as a collaborative effort that is important or that is crucial to the overall product and drive success. And then be open to feedback, right? Now, sometimes I know that all my examples has looked like the stakeholders versus product team or product manager, but sometimes it's you, the product manager, that is wrong. And so you have to also be open to feedback, listen to your stakeholders' feedback, and always like analyze, is this correct? Am I the one that is wrong here? You don't want to jeopardize your product because of your own bias or your own pride. And then collaborate, celebrate wins together. Now, we've already learned how important user experience research, how important intentional UX design is very important to the success of the product. And so you want to be able to reinforce or sort of commend the team, commend the product designers, not just even the developer, commend the team for a job well done and celebrate wins together, right? Now, on a final note, UX metrics are valuable tools, but they shouldn't be your sole focus. You use them along qualitative user research like usability testing to gain a deeper understanding of your user pain points and opportunities. And just using all of these tools that we've learned about in collaboration or simultaneously helps you create a product that your users will love. That's it for this particular topic. Tomorrow we're going to be learning about wireframing. We are going to learn about how to map user flows. So tomorrow is very interesting. But for today, do we have any questions? Okay. Livingstone, you can ask your question.
Okay, good evening, ma.
Good evening.
I don't want to say I'm confused, but the thing is, At week two, when we did the PRD, and I raised a particular question now that does our user story and all of that. What I actually saw before I did the assignment was I saw a particular PRD that has user persona in it.
Customer,
So
it
my
has
first question is, does our PRD, like our user persona, is it that we'll be putting it in the PRD, or what exactly is the context of
I addressed, wait, listen, I addressed it. I addressed the fact that you don't have to write the user persona.
for our PRD,
Yes, you
right?
don't have to write it. Yes, it is optional.
Okay. So
Yes.
I think maybe I'll just ask the question again. I think I've forgotten the second part.
Okay. Okay. David Abulu.
Yeah, good evening, Judith.
Good evening.
Thank you for the lecture. So, for me, I'm more interested in understanding how this thing will be done, okay, on the
How was
job.
your
How these things will be done on the job, right? So, based on that, I want to ask. So, usually, all these products, when they are built, is it that the product manager is seen as the default admin to this product to be able to be monitoring all these things you are saying and then able to also carry out all these various research you are saying. So
when you
that
say user admin, what do you,
I didn't say user admin, default admin. Okay,
oh,
let's say for
default
example now
admin?
you yes.
I'm asking, what do
Be-
you mean by default admin?
Okay, like someone who manages the will I say the platform. Like any platform now that has users, right? And you are saying all of
Yeah.
this class is all about you are saying showing us different researches we are supposed to be making as so I'm asking I want to understand how it is done in real life. Is it that uh the product manager is the default or de facto admin for all of these products, any product? So the moment you are a product manager, it is establish that you are the admin to that product. You are the one to go, you are the one to always manage it, monitor it.
That's essentially what products. That's why it's products management. Products, the management of products. You are there to manage the products.
So usually you will have an admin profile to all of these products you manage.
I don't like the term admin because admin doesn't fully compass. It doesn't fully cover what you do because admin means you don't have decision making power, and that's not what product management is. You are able to, like I said, you're able to make decisions based on what you observe about your products, right? So but what happens is you do have a view into your product. So now you've okay, let's use product analytics as an example. You've launched your products, right? And your backend developer has integrated a monitoring tool like Mixpanel. You can Google Mixpanel. Mixpanel is a product analytics tool. You can use it to track metrics and events and behaviors of your users. Now you've integrated Mixpanel. You, the product manager, has an account on Mixpanel. Even your product marketer has an account on Mixpanel because they are going to be looking at the product. So everything that pertains to your product, you have access to it so that you're able to do your job properly.
Okay. So assuming okay, for example now, I have been on a consulting case, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so for a SaaS product. So usually they have not uh, they've not integrate any of this analytic tool. So
Mm.
in that kind of a product, how will the product manager have visibility?
You can't have
It,
visibility if there's
it,
no tool attached.
so even okay with so another my second question is
But
this. So
let me ask you before you move on to the second question. Let me ask you a question for the tool that you worked on for the products that you worked on. How were you able to? Were you the product manager?
no. That's I said consulting. So we were a revenue consultant. So they had their
Okay.
product manager. So when we're actually asking them things like this, also things like this will, like you mentioned, that the user persona are more of in marketing, right?
Yes.
So those were the things we were providing guidance to guidance for, like for them to create their user persona, know the ideal customer, know the buyer persona in it. So what I was asking, is there, beyond using third-party analytic tools, so is there a way that a product can be built in-house that the product manager will be able to read all of these things at the beginning
Um.
when it's being built?
No, you need to integrate something. You need to put something. Otherwise, you can't see anything. Unless maybe your back end developer will be looking at their own. They will have some sort of dashboard, right, back end. But it doesn't necessarily. You don't want to be dependent on the back end. You want to be able to make your own data driven decisions based on, oh, you opened your analytic tool and you saw that our users are not moving. You don't want it to be that, because it's not your backend developers job, so they're not going to be tracking it. Do you understand? They're not going to be monitoring it. So even if they have visibility, they will have visibility as in just the context that it connects with their job, or maybe there's an issue, you escalate to them and they need to look into it. But in terms of you making a decision, because ultimately you are the product manager and you are the one that is making a decision for the success of the product, right? Remember, it's your responsibility. And so even if you do not have visibility, how are you going to make the decisions that will help grow your product? It will be difficult.
Okay, so from your explanation, what I've gotten is that I really don't, as a product manager, I don't have to have an admin profile on the product itself. So, but using third-party analytic tools, I can know everything about the product. Is
Oh
that how it
yes. You don't
works?
have to be on the products. But remember, I advise that you use your product from time to time, not necessarily an admin. Use it as an end user. Like
Okay.
download your product and try to go through your onboarding, try to go through your steps. If you can use it regularly, try to, so that you're able to flag bugs before your users can start complaining.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oluwatoyin, Oluwatoyin Ayotunde. Oluwatoyin, please unmute. Okay, we can't hear you.
Good afternoon, ma.
Hello, good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please ask your question.
Yes, okay. What I wanted to ask is this. Um, when you were talking about A/B testing, now when I was a digital marketer, what we do in A/B testing is we try to create two different scenarios and see the one that works better. Can you still hear me, ma?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can.
Okay. So when we do that, we try to see which of the interface, like I won't say interface, but uh which of the two faces people are interacting with more. Maybe for example, I'm selling a wig, for example, and I make
Mm-hmm.
two ads. So I'll make one a certain way, then the other one a certain ways. Then I'll run the campaign. Then when I do that, some people will interact better with maybe the
Yeah.
first ad, but they won't interact better with the second hard. So by that, we'll be able to say that, okay, the first one is working better. So in that case, that means that we're able to do differences in user preferences. But in this case, when you're talking about A/B testing, for example, if we are running an app, is it that after an app is live, we are able to set up two different interfaces for different people, that they are able to see the interface from different um, uh, experiences. So we'll be able to say, okay, people love this experience more than the other one. I don't know if you understand my question.
So not necessarily two different user interface, but think of it like sports treatment, right? Remember my example was you're trying to fix the payment flow for an e-commerce website. So when you are doing A/B testing in product development or in products, you are essentially trying to spot, treat, or test a specific aspect of the user flow. So maybe you're trying to see, or you're trying to optimize your onboarding. Now it's not the entire product, you're just trying to optimize your onboarding, and then you can now release two different onboarding flow, which means two different screens that will get the users into the product and see which one is which is better. Maybe one will have 5 steps, which means 5 screens for the users to get the product, or one version or one variant will have 3 screens, and you're trying to see which ones gets on the product faster. So it's more like sports treatment in products. You're trying to see which aspects of the flow we can optimize or we can improve, and then that's when you're now conducting A/B testing.
Okay. So what I really want to know exactly is, for example, let's use the onboarding process as an example again. So let's assume that the product is live,
Yeah.
but then with those tracking tools that you said that we can use to see if the processes are the experience of the processes are good enough for the users,
Mhm.
and we are seeing that maybe on a particular onboarding session that it takes very long for the users to complete the steps, and we are
Mm,
like, okay, what can we do to solve this problem? For
mm,
example, is it that we create a new process for that onboarding session, maybe from like 5 screens to 3? So how are we going to implement the 3? Is it that we are going to make the 3 screens live now, then we'll just keep the other one dormant for the meantime and see how people
yeah,
interact with the 3? Or the way we run both, that some people
yeah,
will get on the 3 screens, some
yeah,
people get on the 5 screens.
yes,
Okay,
that's
we
what
can
you
run
do.
both at the
Yes, yes, you run both. So
oh,
your developers will be able to segment your users according to how you want them segmented, and so you can run both concurrently, and then you
so we can
track
now
and
get make the decision.
yes, yes. So when you now track and see which is better, you cannot discontinue one. But I would like
Wow.
to mention that you don't always do A/B testing. The A/B testing is done when you are trying to make a decision for which process flow is better. So it's not that every time you are going to be conducting A/B testing, right? It's when you are sure that we're trying to optimize the process, but we're not entirely sure that this is the best route. So let's run two and see which is best.
All right, that explains it. Thank you very much, man.
You're welcome. Isaiah, Isaiah Ekaitem, you can ask your question.
Okay, good evening, man.
Hello, good evening.
Um, yeah, good evening. My own, not really a question, sir.
You're not
When
audible.
you were
Can you
talking
please?
about this, can you hear me?
You're not audible. I can't hear you. I'm muffled.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Not necessarily. Not really.
Okay, I wanted to say that when you were talking about the website analytics and the Airbnb testing slide, network cut me off, so I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear you anymore throughout the slide. So I want to say, please, if you can just throw more light on the slide, please.
You can go over. I will share the recording after the class. You can go over the recording. The slide is on Google Classroom so that we can take more questions. We're almost out of time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Victor Amos, your hands have been up. Victor Amos. Victor Amos, we don't have time. Please just unmute your mic, ask your question so we can take everybody. Okay. It's not ready. Najib. Najib Ashiru.
Hello, good evening. Good evening,
Yeah.
ma. Thank you very much for the classes. What I'm asking is, I'm asking about my assessment. I don't know if you have access to it anymore because there is no any feedback concerning it from
I
you.
mentioned at the beginning of the class that you will have your grades by latest by Tuesday.
Okay, I wasn't online that time. That's why.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah. Emmanuel Olushile.
Thank you very much, ma. Good evening to you.
Good
All right,
evening.
thank you. Okay, I want to ask the personal data, the
Customer
user
persona.
personal, the user personal. Thank you very much. Are we going to include it during the user research that we are doing the quantitative research? Are we going to include it there? I'm focusing on the issue of the marital
Did
status
you
and
join
the
late? Did you join late?
ma.
Did you join late?
I didn't join late. I'm asking that because I like go doing the research. I didn't even include my own. I didn't include
Oh no, you
my.
don't have to. You don't have to. What I said is, I said that the information you include in your form, you think about your product. Is it important to your product? Right? Now, it's not
Okay,
necessary to ask for marital status, but there are certain products where the marital status informs the kind of product offering you can give your users. It's
okay,
not
okay,
necessary. And just you don't have to include all of the information. You just include information that is necessary to your user and your product, and then those are the questions that you ask, and those are it is the feedback that informs your customer persona.
okay, okay. Thank you very much, ma. I'm most
Mhm.
grateful. Thank you.
Yeah. Praise Esosa.
Evening, ma.
Hello, good evening.
Yes. Please, I need to ask, what do you guys mean by screen? Like screen one, screen two, screen three, screen four, screen five?
So, so screens are on Figma. You do you know Figma?
No, I'll go and after this class now. I'll check for it.
Okay, so Figma is a tool that product designers use to design apps. So we call what you how do I explain this? We'll call your what is on your phone now is a screen on Figma. For example, your wallpaper. No, let's not use wallpaper. When you log into Instagram, for example, Instagram homepage now is a screen. It's called a screen because before the developer integrated the homepage to include Explore, it was just a static screen. So static screens on
Okay.
Figma are essentially just called screens until you now integrate it, and then it now becomes like the entire user experience that users can slide and do things on them.
Oh, okay. I
Yes.
get now. Thank you very much.
Achugo Prince will. Achugo Prince will.
The last asked my question.
Achugo, I can't hear you.
I said the last speaker has asked
She asked
what
your
I
question.
wanted to ask.
Okay, no
Yes.
problem. All right. Uh, I saw Livingstone. You had your hands raised. I saw that. Or has your question been answered too? Okay. Ketura Kenas. Ketura, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay. Augusta. Augusta Malizu. Livingston, you go after
Good
Augusta.
evening, ma.
Hello, good evening.
Okay, my question is when we are talking about the feature-driven development, right? You said it's a framework
Mm-hmm.
similar to Agile.
Mm.
So, and like in our previous assignment, you said that some companies adopt Agile framework in their organization to,
Mm.
in the products. Um, so my question is, does companies also adopt this FDD as their own way of creating product, or is it not
Yeah.
like that? I don't know
Yes,
if you are
yes.
getting my question.
So yeah, I understand. You're asking if it is certain companies that just adopt it, just the way agile is adopted by certain companies, right? That's your question. Yes, the
Yes,
answer
ma.
is
Yes, ma.
yes.
That's my
Certain.
question.
So the answer is yes, Augusta.
Okay, ma. Okay, ma. Thank you, ma.
Livingstone.
Okay, thank you, ma. So
Mm-hmm.
this is my question. You gave a difference between the user research and user experience research, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
clarify if can you hear me?
Mm.
Okay, I want to clarify if the user experience research will be after the MVP, and you were making a comparison between the was it the user experience research now and the Scrum methodology. My question is, does Scrum, you know, develop features or kind of our products after MVP, or does Scrum make use of MVP? That's my question.
Yes, now every software development company make use of MVP. MVP is the minimum viable product. Every software development company would have launched an MVP first and then iterate off of that MVP. So what's your question now that I've answered this?
User experience research will be after we've launched our MVP, Abi, since it was
Mm,
very different from the normal user research.
yes. It's after you've launched your
Okay,
MVP.
okay, thank you.
But you'd have conducted user research, oh.
Yeah, I know.
Alright. Israel. Oluka Israel.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Uh, I want to confirm something in respect of the screen sharing in order to know which one is the best one that people are actually vying for you to
Hmm?
go into it. I want to know concerning this screen sharing, that is the testing of a product now, to know the one that people actually suit the users before you actually go for that one. I want to know if a half-baked product, like a product that has not been completed or sharing the screen, you actually going to launch it to a Play Store or wherever it to be, and then people will download the half-baked product. Then you know which one that people are actually having interest in more and the one that people are having interest in more, or which other is there any other techniques apart from actually launching it to where the users can actually download it for testing of the product?
Israel, I didn't say anything about screen sharing. Screen sharing is not a user research. You're probably referring to A/B testing, and
Yes, A/B testing
I
is
talked
the
about
A/B
A/B.
testing that I'm talking about.
Okay, A/B testing. You cannot launch and have baked products. It is not good practice. You don't you launch a complete product to your users. I answered this question earlier that A/B testing is not done all the time. It is when you are trying to decide on which experience is best for your users, or you are trying to test something very specific. That is when you use A/B testing. So it's not that let's just be testing to let's just do two different screen, do this one blue, this one red. That's not the purpose of A/B testing. A/B testing is you're trying to optimize an aspect of your user journey, or you're trying to optimize it, or you're trying to streamline your process, and you want to see which ones or which flow will be better for your product or for your users, right? Which is why I gave the example of you're trying to simplify your payment flow, or you're trying to shorten your onboarding flow. So you conduct A/B testing with maybe one will have a shorter flow, will have 3 screens, the other one will have a longer flow, 5 screens, and you see which one works better. Obviously, you will know which one works better because you are monitoring your product analytics tool and seeing how your users are interacting with your product. So it's not that you launch a half-baked product and see how users are interacting. That's not how A/B testing is done.
So I truly understood what it actually means. Understand? My issue is that in respect of the users, where are you getting the users from? How will the user come in contact with the product that you have not launched for them to see? Like, because I know on Play Store that is where they get in contact with the product. Why? Where they download it and they make use of it and then feel the impact, have experience in respect of the product. So when the product has not actually been launched, so how come they have a contact with the product that has not been launched? Like
I did
how
not say that contact. You're
because
not
it's
listening
their
to me. You're not listening. Wait, hold on. You're not listening. You do not conduct A/B testing on a product that has not gone live. That is why I said this is when you want to simplify your user flow. You're not simplifying user flow for something that has not gone live. How do you even know that you need to simplify your user flow? You don't know if it's not live. So it is when your product is live, you have looked at your flow and your processes, and you have seen that your users are not interacting with your product or your process the way you want them to. And then you are trying to conduct an experiment to understand how you can make it better. So if your product is not live, then you're not conducting any experiments.
okay, so the A/B testing is only for product that has actually gone live.
No, I don't want you to confuse yourself. A/B testing, I said it that we are going to address A/B testing in week 8. So this was only mentioned here in passing. So don't worry, we're going to talk about it in full very soon, in a couple of weeks.
Okay, if so, no problem. I have to relax it then. I'm just curious
Mm.
about it to really digest. I
You
understand.
can
Thank
read
you.
about it. Don't worry. If you're very curious, you can read about so
All
that when
right.
we get it, it's easier for you.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Two more and then we'll wrap up. Ibewuchi. Paul, you can ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to find out in the event that you're creating wireframes and the product designer is also creating wireframes, which is built off a specific user flow.
Sorry,
How do
could
you,
you take that again? Please say that again.
okay, in the event that you're creating wireframes as a product manager and the product designer is also doing the same thing, how do you harmonize the two?
Well, you don't need to create wireframes if your product designer is creating wireframe. Essentially, it's even their responsibility. What you do is you do user flow, which is flow charting. So it's less detailed than a wireframe. It's just you dictating the user flow, and then your product designer can create wireframes off of your user flow or your flow charting.
Okay, so you just share the roles, you create the user flow, you create the wireframes.
Sorry?
So you just share the roles, you create the user flow, they create the wireframes.
Not necessarily share the role. So the reason why you are doing a user flow or the reason why you are doing flow charting is so that the translation of the PRD is clear, right? Now, did you write a PRD?
Yes, I did.
Okay, if you wrote a PRD, you see that, or if you look at my PRD, you see that there are use case scenarios under features that I was very detailed. Now, on your PRD, instead of writing or instead of articulating your use case scenarios where you're like, oh, the user will click on this should how would they get on onboarding? They'll click on this button, they'll do this, they'll do that. When you do a flow chart, you don't have to write all of those things. You just link it on your PRD and your product designer, because the product designer must look at PRD before they're even doing any design. And so when they get on your PRD, if they look at your flowchart, they're easily able to easily translate your design. So it's not necessarily like you're sharing it, but it just makes your work easier. Do you get?
Okay, but after the MVP, do you still continue that process?
For every PRD, yes, yeah, you do it for every PRD you're writing. Again, you can just write it out instead of using a flowchart. I just recommend. That's why I said it's not necessarily like you're sharing the rows. You can, if you are able to clearly articulate the user flow for on your PRD, then your designer doesn't have a problem. They can translate what you've written down into wireframe and screens on Figma. But it's just good practice for you to do a flowchart so that you are everybody's clear, and even you too, you have clarity as you are defining the requirements for the screens.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh, Yahaya Abdulaziz Yahaya.
Good evening, ma.
Hello, good evening.
Uh, my question is, when you make suggestions and corrections to our assignment, are we going to re-upload it after we correct it, or it's just going to be like that?
Hmm?
When you make
Oh
corrections and suggestions to our assignment,
no, you don't have to re-upload it. It's just for your own personal it's for your own learning experience, just so you know what you did wrong and you're able to make that correction consequently. You don't have to re-upload, just for yourself.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions? Any more questions, guys? We're about to go. Ketura, I unmuted you earlier. Ketura, you can ask your question. Ketura Kenas. Ketura Kenas.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, ma.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, ma.
I can hear you. Good evening.
All right, my question is not part of today's lectures.
Okay, Ketura, if it's not part of today's lectures, can you send me a DM so that we'll take
Okay,
it
no
to.
problem.
Have
Okay,
I not
thank you, ma.
answered? You sent me a message. I have answered you. Do you have another
Yes,
question?
yes, ma.
Okay, yeah, ask a question. Ask it.
All right. How will I meet up with my missing assignment? The one that I've missed.
What class are you in? On Google Classroom.
Product management.
In which of the product management? So when you go on Google Classroom, you are segmented into different classes. Go and check at the top of your screen. I don't know where, but I think at the top of your screen you should see the name of
Mm,
your class. Product management something, right? Is that something I want to know? What is attached to the product
like
management?
it's like
So,
general or something.
is it
It's not that
Jen?
complete. Yes, it's Jane.
So you are in the new class. So week 1 to 5,
Yes,
week 1 to 4 for you is you
yes,
can still submit because there's no submission date. But week 5, which was last week, has passed, so you've missed that
yes.
one. You can catch up with this week and then consequently try to submit your week 1 to 4. Week 1 to 4 you can still submit, but week 5 has closed. So look out for week 6. I will upload week 6 assignment tomorrow.
All right, ma.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Victor, this is the last we'll take today. Victor Amos.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the class today. It has really been enriching for me.
Mm.
So, my question is it a product manager that will also design the user experience, like the UX?
No,
Is he the one started with that? Okay, who
no, you
does
you work with a product designer.
okay, the product design will do both the UI and the UX.
The product designer will design your all the experience for your product. The product designer will design, but you have input.
Okay. But with them,
Mm.
are we also having a class on that? I mean, are we? Will you also teach us the UI and UX part of the, so that we can be able to also understand what's going on?
We just learned about UI UX for design. That's what we just learned about.
I mean, will there be a practical class, like maybe using Figma or Sketch? Those tools. Will there be a
So
practical session?
tomorrow there will be a practical class on flow charting, right? So we're going
Okay.
to do a practical class on flow charting. But in terms of collaborating with a designer, there is not we can't create. I would have loved to create a workspace and invite all of you so you can see how it works. But it's paid, and I can't pay for a plan. And on the free plan, only one person gets to be on a workspace. So the most I can do is design a user flow and share my screen, and you guys watch while I do that.
All right. Okay, that will be fine. Thank you, ma'am.
Alright. Okay, Livingstone, how many questions do you have?
Just one. It's not pertaining to the class actually. The thing is, I have someone in my DM on Telegram saying that he can't join any class, and I don't know the reason.
On
But
Google
later, I asked
Classroom.
the person said he's in data science. I don't know how the thing is. Maybe there are some people actually that are unable to join class, but they are on
Okay,
the Youth
wait,
Thrive
wait.
General Group. So I don't know how they will go about it.
The person that is unable to join, is it Google Classroom that the person said he can't join? Or
The Telegram,
the Telegram class?
their Telegram.
Okay,
Yes.
we'll escalate to the data people. Thank you.
Oh, all right.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Today was very interactive. I hope we learned. You can, as I always advise, take your own time and go and read the slides, read the extra learning resources, Google whatever points of confusion you have so you are clearer. Tomorrow we're going to learn about wireframing and the more practical aspects of this UI UX design that pertains to product managers. And I'm going to map a user flow. I'm going to do a flow chart on live class so we can see how that happens. I'll use one of the tools. I'm going to use FigJam so we can see how that works. And you need to, I hope that whatever questions we have has been answered today, because you're going to write a customer persona for your assignments this week, and you're going to flowchart your use case scenarios on your PRID. So if your PRID is not correct, go and implement the corrections that I've given for your own sake, not so that you're resubmitting, but just so that you're able to do this assignment properly. Because, like I said, you are building on a foundation, and if your foundation is not solid, then you're going to have a shaky experience for the entirety of the program. So that's it for today. Thank you all for joining. Have a good night. We'll convene here tomorrow, same time. No, we'll convene here tomorrow by 5 p.m. Yeah, 5 p.m. tomorrow. Good night.